Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Greg Olma with Key Performance Ideas, and I would like to welcome you to our webinar, Scalable Systematic Application to Accelerate Close Cycle and Increase Analysis. Today's webinar will be presented by Stan Okula. Stan has extensive Oracle EPM expertise with numerous full-cycle implementations of business systems. He is Hyperion Financial Management certified and trained and heavily experienced using leading EPM software such as Hyperion Financial Data Quality Management, Oracle EPMA, Hyperion Reporting, SmartView, and Oracle Shared Services. Stan, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thanks Greg, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I'd like just to go over our agenda that we have set up for today for us, and we're going to talk about specifically with Oracle Financial Consolidation and Closed Cloud Services, specifically with the affordability. And from there, we'll take a look at some of the benefits that the cloud applications from Oracle does have for us. We'll then talk about compliances and the compliance framework available to you. And then we'll move into data integration, which is specifically data management within FCCS. And then lastly, we'll talk and touch base on how we can reduce and quickly deploy out applications using FCCS from Oracle. Starting off, affordability. What are some of the costs involved, specifically hardware and then software or licensing that we have for FCCS? And from there, we'll take a look at some of the upgrade and update costs, as well as maintenance fees, and most importantly, probably some of the out-of-the-box features and functionalities that you're going to have available to you on day one from FCCS. Costs. Hardware. Well, because it's on the cloud, there is no cost. There's no more need for a rack of servers or gigs of storage available to your applications. That's all going to be handled for you by Oracle. Speaking of Oracle, the licensing costs, well, the costs involved for FCCS are constructed much differently than they are for the traditional or on-premise applications like HFM. You can see that for applications on the cloud, we're looking at approximately $2,500 per user as a retail price currently that is now available from Oracle. There is a minimum of 10 users for the application, but if you look at it, the cost for an on-prem is not just by user for the consolidation piece, but also the related costs that we are going to have from FDMAE or your data management tool that you have to use to get that data into HFM. So there is going to be a much different cost structure specifically from Oracle when using FCCS. As for your upgrades and updates, well, those are going to be available to you through your initial costs that you do have, and there is not going to be additional costs for that. Now, there are going to be scheduled or unscheduled updates within the system, but you actually do specify when that's going to happen, not just for your production environment, but your alternate or your test environment that is going to be included for you as well. So all your maintenance fees, again, are also going to be included for you in that one cost. So if we look at the total cost of ownership for the licensing, again, the structure developed by Oracle is much different now than it was in the past for their traditional on-premise applications. Now, as for the features and functionalities that we do have on day one after you do the install, much of the calculations are going to be now included. A lot of the times where specific rules had to get developed, well, a lot of those are now going to be included for you on day one. The hierarchies. There are 11 unique hierarchies that we utilize within the application, but those hierarchies, many of them are going to be populated for us. Now, by doing this, that really is going to eliminate a lot of the need of building those dimensionalities out for you within the application. Security and security structure also is going to be changed for you as well. That many of the functions and features are going to be available to you. For example, like the roles of the system. So that information actually is going to be available to you, again, on day one when you do the install. There's a lot of reporting features that are included for you, again, on day one of the application. You have the traditional type of journal reports, but also auditing reports, which is going to be very key for you for an application like this for consolidation. There's also going to be an FR, or Financial Reporting Studio, available to you from the web so that you can develop additional reports within the system and be able to generate those reports inside of Excel, for example, or sent out to as a PDF. And then lastly, auditing. Auditing is going to be available to you, not just for data, but also task-oriented audit reports are going to be available to you. Data management reports, again, are going to be available to you on day one out of the box. Now, having an application on the cloud, what are going to be some of the benefits that we have? Well, first off, the application itself, FCCS, is built off of an S-based database. By doing so, this is an OLAP or a CUBE solution for you. Now, what does that do for us? Well, having it on this type of environment in the background as your core source for data, it's going to be much more efficient. So being able to transfer and shift data off the cloud to your tools are going to be much more efficient. So your application integration is going to be not just available to laptops and desktops, but also through different type of smart devices like iPads or tablets. That's going to be available to you. And then also there's going to be multiple browser support. In the past they were limited, but now it does support Microsoft Internet Explorer and Edge, Google Chrome, as well as Mozilla Firefox. So all traditional or most of the more common browsers are going to be available to you. And another great feature that they have available to us is the multiple environments, the identical test and probe environments. This is going to be key for you. So not only do you get one environment for your application, but you have a duplicate, which is a true identical version of the production environment. This is a big change that they've had recently from Oracle. So another new benefit that we have from Oracle. Now, I call this the best of both worlds as another big benefit, because what we're doing now is having this application up on the cloud, but we're getting the back end, as I mentioned, from Essbase. That gives us a huge performance increase that we haven't had in the past for the prior generations from the consolidation applications from Oracle. The performance is going to be much, much better for you. So that means your calculations, your reporting is going to be actually brought out much more quickly, much more efficiently. So that means your analysis is going to be much more readily available to you. Speaking of calculations are going to be driven the way they are handled off the OLAP or off of Essbase, which is a little bit different, but again, it's going to be a lot more efficient for you in the long run. And then lastly, application consistency. Now, Oracle has already delivered their planning and Essbase solution up on the cloud for PBCS. Now that FCCS is also available to you, the applications are now synonymous, or the maintenance and the integrity of the applications are going to be following the same guidelines or path lines for the applications. Now, for those of you who are familiar with how Oracle was doing this in the past, or with Hyperion in the past, version 11 was close, but it really wasn't there. They truly have now delivered a solution where PBCS and FCCS are going to be on the same plane, which makes maintenance and administration much more easier for you to handle. Now, as for the application itself for consolidation, we have the heritage that came from HFM. Specifically, there's a couple different items, but the dimensionality that HFM brought, which was the prior generation for consolidations from Oracle and Hyperion. Now, they've gone many years, we're talking probably, close to 30 years now that they've been supporting and delivering consolidation solutions with multiple generations. FCCS is the next generation for consolidation needs. Now, what it does for us is that it does give us that dimensionality. Now, in the past, we had dimensions like the intercompany dimension that allowed you to have intercompany activity between different entities or locations within your environment. This will automatically generate eliminations, which is usually a large problem for companies for trying to get that elimination data and information into their consolidation reports. There's actually new dimensions in there as well. We have a movements dimension. Now that movement dimension assists us, has already rules and calculations for FX and CTA, which is definitely going to benefit us for cash flow. That's usually the toughest piece to get into an application. Now, much of those calculations are available to you and available on day one. There's also a source dimension. Now, in the past, if you're familiar with Oracle and Hyperion, specifically with HFM, we always had these custom dimensions that you can utilize. And almost always, what I've always seen with applications is that we created a source dimension out of one of them. Well, this is already pre-filled, pre-built on day one. So that's already available to you, which is great because this way you can segment where your data is coming from. Is it coming from an ERP system? Is it coming from a supplemental form or keyed in by an individual? Is it being brought in by a journal? Or is it done by calculation? We can segment and see that data right up front and very easily depict where that's coming to within our reports. We have a source, I just mentioned that. The journal report, is the next piece. Again, this is part of the legacies of the different versions that they had in the past. Full journal support is available within FCCS. Now, what does that do for us? It allows us to have full auditing and capabilities, audit capabilities, and reporting capabilities for those journals. And then lastly, we have Smart View connectivity. If you're familiar already with Oracle and Hyperion products, Smart View is a great and fantastic tool for that, not just the ad hoc capabilities, but also your reporting needs. So what this allows you to do is to create and see your data inside of Microsoft Office. So this way, your analysts who are always driven by these huge spreadsheets of manipulating data or looking at their data different ways, well, that's available to them. So this way they can pull your data, pull that data, and really truly analyze that data when it's needed. But also for the reporting needs from PowerPoint and Word documents, you can easily add connection to data so that next time you open that report or that presentation, those numbers are going to be the latest and greatest as they appear inside your consolidation application. Now, as for compliancy and the compliance framework, there's multiple items that FCCS does deliver for you. Specifically, we're going to talk about some of the auditing features, the security, multi-GAAP, the intercompany activity as well as reporting, journal adjustments and how that's being handled in the workflow for the journals, and then lastly, how data auditing and tracking is handled within FCCS. First off, auditing. What can we audit? There's a large list of items that we can audit, and this, again, all comes out of the box for you. So if you're auditing data, who's loading in what, to where, and if they're changing it, that can be easily reported on. Metadata, your application administration, who's changed what within the system itself, again, and what they've changed it to or from. Forms. Forms are actually a piece within the application where users can add in supplemental data or information. Well, those forms can be modified and changed. We track that as well as for auditing. Rules. If we change or modify calculations within the system, those can be audited as well. As I mentioned before, journals. Journals are still being audited, but again, who's creating, deleting, modifying, posting or unposting of a journal, those are all can be maintained through an audit trail. User administration. When does the user get added? And to what rights are they going to have based off their security rights and roles. We can easily not just create users, but also groups. Well, again, we can audit that information for us. Again, making your life a lot easier to maintain a financial reporting solution. Next off we have is clearing cell details. So if someone does modify and clear out information from your application, we can see exactly what got changed and by whom. And then lastly, approvals, not just for journals, but within the system itself. How system items have been approved and by whom and when. Those are all can be audited through the system. Now, as for security, security has been changed. If you're familiar with prior versions of Oracle and Hyperion solution products, those are all driven by shared services. Those are no longer going to be maintained through shared services. It's now being managed through OIM, or Oracle Identity Management. Now, what does that do for us? It's going to be one location for all of your security needs within the system, not just for FCCS, but also for PBCS and other tools within the application. So again, it's going to simplify your security management within the system. What it also includes is single sign-on, or SSO. What this does, it allows FCCS to use your specific rights and restrictions when it comes to security. So this way you're not issuing another ID and another password to a system. It's going to also allow you to maintain the same structuring for password maintenance. So if your current system allows for a user to change their password every 90 days with restrictions of how long or how frequently they can reuse a password, that's going to flow through directly into FCCS. Now, another key benefit is if there's a user that needs to be locked out, once you lock them out of your network, they get also locked out of FCCS. So what FCCS really does is that when we set up your single sign-on features, what that does is allows FCCS to go back to your security management and get authentication through your security services first before it can bring it into FCCS. Additionally, we have is predefined roles. We have a set of roles for users within the system. We have identity domain administrators, service administrators, power users, users, and viewers. And what you do is when we create a user, we can set them up to a specific role within the system. Now, these roles can be modified, and additional roles could be created if needed. We also have custom groups available to us, because when we're dealing with a large population of users within your system, it's easier to maintain them in groups instead of individually. So we can create custom groups, assign users to those groups, and then give them the individual roles that they have within the system. Now, those roles also can get compounded by what access they have to, let's say, individual locations or entities within your system, or let's say even accounts. Some users may have write access to accounts that are for containing supplemental information, where they may only have view rights when it comes to data coming from your GL or ERP systems. Lastly, within security, we have access for artifacts, specifically within the system, like forms and folders, reports and journals, and specific data access points. So again, I may have rights to view the actuals, but I can go in and modify the budget or forecast data if needed. So as for security, how is it broken down? Some of the things that we can actually do within security are very straightforward. And here's a few examples of some of the things that they do, that we can do within the security system in OIM. First off is users. We can easily add users into the system, and those can be either a local user or one that's being done by SSO, where we're actually utilizing your your security authentication rights. We also have access for SFTP users, which is really going to be a lot of the Oracle individuals that are supporting your application up onto the cloud. So for those individuals, we can also maintain and track their use as for your auditing needs. as I mentioned, the individual roles, the roles that are currently that are available to you, but also if you need to create custom roles, we can do that as well. And from there, we can take a look at how we actually contact the users. Specifically, if there's any type of notifications or any type of information that has to come from the system and be delivered to your key users or your administrators. So if there is a problem with, let's say, with security, or if there is a maintenance issue where Oracle needs to update a patch or an update, that information could be emailed out quickly, and you specify exactly who has the rights to see what coming from the system. Another thing within security is going to be the configuration for single sign-on, or SSO. Now you can see here that there's a lot of information that has to be brought into the system, but once it's set up, FCCS out in the cloud will always come back to your environment, get authentication, following your rules and your formats for how users maintain their environment and their security access. Lastly, we have this access control. Now, access control allows us to actually create different groups and also different roles, so that what we can do is maintain a uniform security model based off of not just users, but off of groups, and how those users are going to have access within your system and environment. Now, a lot of times what we need to do is provide for an audit trail how or how many users have rights and what rights do they have within the system. These can be easily generated out into reports and provided to your auditing group, so that you can easily see and maintain who has access to what, to where within your application. So it can be for the provision of the rights, but then specifically for the users and not the users, but when they're accessing the environment and from where are they accessing it. So this way you can easily maintain that security audit trail, as I was mentioning before about auditing rights. Continuing on with the compliances and compliance framework, we have Multi-GAAP. If you do need to have multi-GAAP reporting, we can utilize one of the custom dimensions for multi-GAAP. Now, what does that do for us? Well, when we create the application, we specify we do need to support multi-GAAP. What it will do is take one of those dimensions and then pre-populate it with some key members and key logic for your rules for your GAAP reporting. So it starts us off with a default, and then from there we can build up against that. Additionally, we have for multiple currency support. This allows us to have a dimension that pre-populates all the currencies that you do need to support. And what this also does is allow for translation rules to execute. These translation rules will execute during consolidation. Now, those rules for translation and consolidations, again, those are pre-built and available within the system on day one, which, again, makes your deployment of an application much, much quicker. Additionally, for compliancy is intercompany. We have an intercompany dimension. Now, what does this do for us? It allows us to track intercompany activity for both the balance sheet and P&L. And what does it do for us during consolidation? It creates an auto elimination within the consolidation rules, where it will eliminate at the first common parent of where that activity happens. Data is now going to be stored for us, specifically in a unique member called FCCS elimination. And anytime you see a member that starts off with FCCS, you know it's going to be a system-defined member that's within the system for us. Now, we have a dimension specifically for this to be maintained in, and that's inside your consolidation dimension. And then lastly, we're going to have a series of pre-built reports for intercompany activity. These are going to work from your plug account. So when you have a plug account, You specify which plug count do you wish to see that reporting on. And then you can filter and limit the information that you're going to have by putting in different tolerances, let's say either by value or percent for the match. And then we have multiple methods of actually getting that. You can be in PDF or in XML, or if you want it inside of Microsoft in either XLS or XLSX, those will be available to you. Now, again, following along with compliances, journals, adjustments, and journal workflow. Now, the way it's handled now is slightly different compared to the prior generation for consolidations. But we do have some standardized rules that we do follow for working with journals and the journal workflow. First off, there is actually an auto generation for the identification numbers for the journals. This is always going to be assigned on a month-by-month basis. So if a journal is ever deleted, that number is not going to be reused, but it's going to be maintained through the system. For journals to occur, periods have to be open. This should be nothing new for us because when we look at, let's say, your ERP system, that period has to be open for data to come in. Well, same idea holds true for your journals. There's actually different status that we have for the journal, and that will either be a working when you create the journal, when you submit a journal, approve a journal, and post a journal. So this way you can track and see where that journal rests within the system. And for some security eyes for journals, the creator of a journal cannot approve the journal. You must have someone in between to approve it. Now, the approver has to be considered a power user or an administrator within the system. So again, security is going to be heavily involved when it comes to working with journals. Also, one of the nice features inside of FCCS is that email can be sent out automatically to all approvers of journals within the system. So this way, there's not going to be a need to pick up the phone and call someone or send or create an email on your own. The system will do that for you automatically. Continuing on with the workflow of journals, the journal itself has to be done into a location where the user has write access to the entity as well as the parent entity within the system. This is part of, again, security within the environment. The journal is going to be saved inside of the source in a unique called journal input. So again, that source dimension allows us to track to see where data is coming in from. Another fail-safe that we do have within FCCS is that the period cannot be closed when a journal has been created and approved. So that journal has someone who is an approver of journals either has to reject the journal or have that journal posted for that period to be closed. Additionally, for a fail-safe, is users who post a journal can be the only user to unpost a journal. Again, following strict guidelines for those journals. And then again, as I mentioned before, we have journal reports so that we can track and audit all the activity for journals. Who's created them, who's posting them, who's unposted them, or who's approving or rejecting those. Again, we can generate reports to see all that type of information. Lastly, with the compliancy and the compliance framework, I'm sorry. My bad. Next piece is going to be data integration, data management. If you're familiar with Oracle and Hyperion, you probably will recognize the fish right away. The fish allows us to step through the data loading or data management process, and they're still with us today. Now, as for data management or data integration, what do we have for us? Well, we have straightforward data mapping. So what does that mean for us? It means that we have easy to understand mappings for your environment. So there's no custom scripts or custom scripting required or needed within the environment, making your life a lot easier to map out your data. Okay, and where can we load from? There's actually a small selection right now of different sources that we can actually load from the Oracle Cloud for HCM or Oracle Financials, NetSuite, and then individual data files which can be generated from your ERP systems. From there, we can actually customize that by using different rules to get those files or those data pieces into your FCCS application. And then lastly, we have the reporting definitions so that we can create and generate reports from that data that's being loaded in through data management from those files. And we can do that just for not just for the locations, but also by the users and who's actually performing those. So as I mentioned, your mapping is going to be really straightforward for us to work with. There's a couple different types of methodologies that we can use or follow, but you can see that there are different availabilities for us. So there's the different tabs across the top for explicit, between, in, multi-dimension, and like. Those are different methods that we can use to get that data mapped out to specific accounts or members that you have within the application. As I mentioned before, we have a series of different source systems that we can load in from currently. So again, if you have HCM or financials from Oracle Cloud, those can be a viable solution for you for sources, as well as NetSuite. Now, if you don't have one of those, your ERP systems can generate an output file, and we can take that file and load it in directly into FCCS. To make life a little bit easier, we can create data load rules. Now, a load rule is a way to predefine how that file is going to be formatted and set so that we can actually take it from a specific location and follow that same logic or rules to bring it into the application itself. Again, making your life easier to get that data into your application so this way you can report off of it. Our next piece for data management is going to be the report definitions. You can see a collection of different report groups which have a series of different types of reports, again, available to you on day one from the within the application, making your life easier so that if you wish to track to see who has been loading in data and who hasn't been, to individual trial balance reports for the data that you may be having. Our next and last piece is we'll be talking about are the deployments. How can we quickly and effectively get your applications built up? Now, one of the things that Oracle did provide for us is having a wizard or user interface for application creation. Now, we all seen how applications can be installed, but this one's a little bit different because what this allows you to do, it's an interactive wizard that allows us to predefine a lot of the core items that you're going to have in the application. For example, if you have multi-GAAP, once you utilize that or set that option, it's going to automatically create a series of members and logic within your environment. So the dimensions and the members that we have inside the application are going to be created, and those are going to be created for you automatically inside your account dimension, your consolidation dimension, your currency dimension, as well as your data source dimension, movement, and then lastly, your view dimension. So again, pre-populating a lot of the information that we used to do manually now is done automatically for us. Now, not just the members does it build out, but also the logic, the rules. This is going to be an immense time saving for an application. So the elimination logic, again, pre-built for us for company activity. Translations from to and from currencies, again, pre-built, available within the application. Your FX impact, currency impacts, again, automatically going to be included and built within the application when you create the application. Roll forward data, and roll forward calculations, making everyone's life a little bit easier to track that movement for your balance sheet accounts. Overrides, currency overrides as well as equity overrides. This was always a piece that we always kind of had to use or had to create so that we can use specific overrides. Now, those overrides could be for, like I said, for equity, but also if, let's say you had an acquisition and it was mid-year, instead of having the system trying to make a translation or a calculation which will then require you to create a journal to compensate for the change, no, we can actually do a currency override for the local currency as well as your reporting currencies. The data management features and functionalities that I mentioned earlier, like the pre-canned reports, again, included for you. A lot of the simplified mapping, again, already going to be there for you. And then lastly, we have something at Key Performance Ideas called Close-tastic. Close-tastic is a comprehensive implementation of an enterprise close and consolidation solution based on Oracle FCCS. Key Performance Ideas can help you develop a complete close solution or upgrade an existing application so that your organization can be moved to a scalable, systematic application, allowing your financing and accounting folks do what they need to do, complete your close cycle effectively and efficiently. And then from there, KPI can offer managed services administration by our in-house administrators so that the need to hire or train and retain specialized full-time administrators can really be eliminated. I can go on for another hour just talking about that. But if you want more information on that, just let us know, and I'm sure that one of our sales folks would be more than happy to supply that information for you. So in conclusion, why should you be moving over to FCCS? Well, first off, as I mentioned, it's a proven technology. SBase and HFM has a long heritage and a very strong environments that they work with. Now they're being now that marriage between the two of them brings us out to FCCS. Security and your security needs. Again, being on the cloud can be a little scary, but again, it goes back to your security environment using SSO so that we're still maintaining that same type of rigid rules and restrictions that you do have within your environment. Your cost savings and your benefits there. We know that this probably should have been the first on the list, but we understand that the modeling has completely changed from on-prem over to cloud. And then lastly, the deployment time, how that can be easily reduced by using FCCS. FCCS does allow us to build out an application because a lot of the things that we took us a lot of time to build out, now is already going to be included for you. Now, yes, there's going to be other things that will be customized specifically to your reporting needs, but the core functionalities that everyone needs for financial reporting, that's all going to be available to you. Now, I want to thank everyone for your time, and Greg, go right back to you.
Thank you, Stan, and thank you all for joining us today for our webinar, Scalable Systematic Application to Accelerate Close Cycle and Increase Analysis. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Stan's and my contact information are displayed on your screen. Thank you again, and have a great day.